Hello, my name is Laura Shaw and I am an educator at the National Museum of the Marine Corps. We are coming to you from our distance learning studio, and today I will be presenting to you our virtual program commemorating September 11, 2001. The National Museum of the Marine Corps is located in Triangle, Virginia, which is about 30 minutes away from Washington, D.C. Our museum is free to the public and open every day with the exception of Christmas Day. And we would love it if one day you are able to visit us and see all of the artifacts and displays we have to offer. Now let's go inside of the museum. If you ever come to our museum in person, Leatherneck Gallery would be the first place you would enter. Leatherneck Gallery has a variety of macro artifacts. A macro artifact is a label that applies to our larger artifacts, such as tanks, amphibious vehicle tractors, and airplanes. All of these displays reinforce the idea that the Marines are prepared to fight in the air, sea, and land. We have incorporated these macro artifacts into vignettes or displays throughout the gallery that depict different combat engagements throughout the United States Marine Corps history. This space speaks to the very core of what it means to be a United States Marine and brings to mind feelings of courage, determination, compassion, innovation, and the tight bonds that are formed between Marines. Here we are at a section of our galleries where we show the events of September 11, 2001, frequently referred to as 9/11. 20 years ago, our country experienced the worst attack on American soil since the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. Almost 3,000 Americans died at the World Trade Center in New York City, the Pentagon in Virginia, and United Flight 93, which was hijacked and crashed into a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Thousands of others were injured or disabled for life. This attack on 9/11 was preceded by several incidents in Afghanistan over the course of the 1980s and into the 1990s. These incidents created a domino effect that led to the formation of Al-Qaeda, a group of religious extremists founded by a man called Osama bin Laden. This group of individuals believes that some Western countries, including the United States, represent very different core values than their extreme religious beliefs. As you will see, this program is organized to present the events of that day and highlight the heroism of Marines and other members of various military branches. As we go through the gallery, we will break down what happened over the course of the day by what time the events occurred. Before we head back into the gallery spaces, let's go over the series of events that occurred on September 11, 2001. Al-Qaeda chose to attack the symbolic targets of the United States, which they destroyed by hijacking commercial aircraft and flying them into well-known American landmarks. The leaders of the organization recruited and trained 19 young men to take over the planes, teaching them necessary flight and combat training, as well as how to get through airport security. This image shows a timeline of the individual aircraft involved that day. We will go through each timeline to explain what happened to each aircraft at different times. Aircraft 1, American Airlines Flight 11, 7:59 a.m. American Airlines Flight 11 takes off from Boston en route to Los Angeles. This will be the beginning of the chain of events on this day. 8:19 a.m. Flight 11 is hijacked by two terrorists and redirected to New York City. On each plane, after the hijackers gained control, they redirected from their original flight path and ground control received no more transmissions. 8:46 a.m. North Tower of the World Trade Center is hit with Flight 11. After Flight 11 struck the North Tower, first responders, some of whom were retired and active duty Marines, immediately began evacuations, and multiple precincts of police and firefighters were involved. They were aware the building was unstable and wanted to get as many people out as they could. 10:28 a.m. At this time, a little less than 2 hours after the collision, the North Tower collapses. Aircraft 2, United Airlines Flight 175, 8:14 a.m. The second plane, United Airlines Flight 175, also takes off from Boston, also headed to Los Angeles. 8:52 a.m. Flight 175 is hijacked and redirected from its original flight path. 9:03 a.m. The South Tower of the World Trade Center is hit with Flight 175. Despite the dangerous conditions in the towers, firefighters and other first responders rushed inside the building to rescue people after the planes crashed. 9:59 a.m., almost 1 hour after the collision, the South Tower collapses, roughly 30 minutes before the collapse of the North Tower. Aircraft 3, American Airlines Flight 77. At 8:20 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 takes off from Dulles International Airport outside of Washington, D.C., headed to Los Angeles. At 9:12 a.m., Flight 77 is hijacked and transmissions are turned off as the plane is redirected to the Pentagon. By this time, air traffic controllers knew that two planes had collided with the Twin Towers in New York City. Flight attendants and passengers on Flight 77 were able to communicate with the ground crew to tell them the plane had been hijacked. 9:37 a.m., Pentagon is hit by Flight 77, 30 minutes after the second plane crashed into the South Tower. Flight 77 collided with the western side of the Pentagon building. While waiting for fire and rescue, many Marines and other military members immediately assisted with finding and evacuating others in the building, as well as setting up areas outside to give first aid while waiting for medical responders. Marines are well known for being the first to fight, making them well trained to respond quickly in emergency situations. They continued to assist even after first responders came onto the scene. One squad of Marines was fully prepared to go back inside the building, but were asked not to by search and rescue personnel, but only because it was no longer safe for anyone to re-enter the building. While waiting for first responders, there are many who risked their own safety to get others out, and in the process probably saved several more lives. 10:15 a.m., the E-ring of the Pentagon collapses. The outer ring, also referred to as the E-ring of the western side of the Pentagon, took the hardest hit from the crash. After it collapsed, it was unsafe for firefighters to continue search and rescue until they were sure the area was stable enough to enter. Aircraft 4, American Airlines Flight 93. At 8:42 a.m., American Airlines Flight 93 takes off from Newark Airport, headed to San Francisco. 9:28 a.m., hijackers take over Flight 93 as it flies over Cleveland, Ohio. 10:03 a.m., Flight 93 crashes into a field in Pennsylvania. After the hijacking of this flight, crew and staff on board the plane were in contact with air traffic control on the ground and got word about the attacks on the World Trade Center. Upon receiving this information, the extremely brave passengers and crew attempted to regain control of the aircraft from the terrorists. The plane would eventually crash into a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, but the heroism of the people on this flight prevented the loss of more life than if the airplane had been allowed to hit another major target. The events of 9/11 had lasting effects on thousands of people. The site where the Twin Towers collapsed and the surrounding area was referred to as Ground Zero. The cleanup of Ground Zero took months to complete. Throughout the entire process, former Marines, Marine reservists, and active duty Marines assisted with the removal of debris from the site. On May 30th, 2002, the last piece of debris was ceremoniously removed from Ground Zero. This fragment, called the last column, was more than a random piece of metal. After the events on 9/11, the last column became a temporary memorial for those working on site to commemorate the brave first responders and civilians who lost their lives on 9/11. In May 2014, the 9/11 Memorial and Museum in New York City was officially opened to the public and now displays the last column as part of the history of that day. As of 2018, 43 million people had visited the memorial and museum in New York City. There is also a memorial at the Pentagon and in the field in Pennsylvania, dedicated to the memory of the brave individuals who lost their lives. The Pentagon Memorial was opened to the public on September 11, 2008. At this site, there are 184 memorial unit benches, one to represent each of the lives that were lost. These units are surrounded by small reflection pools of water and flowering crepe myrtle trees. The field in Pennsylvania was established in 2002 as part of the National Park Service. And aside from the Visitor Center and Memorial, the field has been left much the same as it was 20 years ago. As of 2018, this location is home to one of the most unique wind chime towers in the world. There are chimes with 40 musical tones that represent the 40 passengers and crew on board Flight 93. Now that you have seen the events of this day, I would like to take you back through our gallery space and go over the artifacts of 9/11. In our gallery, we have artifacts which serve as reminders of this day, including a large block of concrete, which is a small portion of the outer west wall of the Pentagon. We also show a large piece of steel taken from the site where the Twin Towers once stood. Both of these artifacts give an idea of how big the pieces of debris were at these two sites. We also display an emblem flag or Marine Corps colors that was remarkably left unscathed in the attack on the Pentagon. Another artifact is a helmet worn by former Marine and retired firefighter William Dunleavy. Dunleavy assisted with recovery efforts at the Twin Towers after 9/11. Dunleavy is also responsible for uncovering another artifact, this keychain with unidentified keys that was discovered at the Twin Towers. Other gallery artifacts included a fire extinguisher sign, a damaged door sign, and a burned telephone. These artifacts were recovered from the office areas that surrounded the impact zone at the Pentagon. In the Pentagon and Twin Towers, fires broke out where the planes had crashed, adding to the danger and the confusion. The intensity of the heat can be seen in the char marks on these artifacts. This sign reads, "Threat condition normal." This sign indicates that no one at the Pentagon thought they would be attacked soon. This artifact is a Marine Corps seal that was warped from the heat of the fires burning in the Pentagon. This seal came from a worker who was, in his words, waiting for a Marine to arrive at the Pentagon. He gave this seal to Master Gunnery Sergeant Roberto Graham, who had come from Quantico to help with the recovery. You can see behind me a clock that stopped operating near the time the plane collided with the building, showing the time of 9:40 a.m. There were other clocks in the building that also stopped. All of these artifacts were taken from the Pentagon near where Flight 77 hit. We are also honored to have on display the belongings of Michael Curtin, including his Marine Corps uniform, his NYPD uniform, and his NYPD Medal of Honor. During the attack on the World Trade Center, many of the first responders were former Marines or Marine Corps reservists, working as police officers, firefighters, or medical personnel. These men and women had experience not only as civilian first responders, but many of them had experience in combat operations, making them ideal people to help others in dangerous situations. In our gallery, we strive to honor the memory of all Marines who displayed uncommon valor on that day. One former Marine who was tragically killed while trying to save others was Sergeant Major Michael S. Curtin, a retired U.S. Marine and a veteran of the Gulf War. Sergeant Major Curtin was already renowned for his response to the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing, a domestic terror attack perpetrated by anti-government militants. While searching the rubble of the Murrah Federal Building, Curtin found and rescued a fellow Marine. On September 11th, Curtin once again responded to a national emergency, now as an NYPD sergeant. Curtin arrived at the site of the World Trade Center, leading an NYPD Emergency Services unit, a unit trained for tactical and technical rescue. Curtin wasted no time setting his crew to work, jumping right into the action himself. Sadly, Curtin was killed while trying to get others to safety when the towers collapsed. Lance Corporals Dustin Schutz and Michael Vera were two Marines working in the Pentagon close to where Flight 77 hit the building. They were both knocked off their feet by the impact, but quickly went to help others. Over the course of the 30 to 40 minutes, these two men, along with other Marines, Navy, Army, and civilian personnel, covered their faces with wet cloths to protect themselves against the smoke and heat while they rescued others who were injured. They continued working until first responders arrived. Over the course of this heartbreaking day, there are many acts of courage and kindness shown by Marines and others at the Pentagon, New York City, and in Pennsylvania. In our galleries, we provide a small room for anyone who needs to spend a moment to reflect and contemplate the brave acts of sacrifice from men and women who have served in the Marine Corps, including those who went above and beyond the call of duty on 9/11. Millions of lives were impacted outside of those who were directly involved with the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, or Flight 93. This room plays a short video of scenes from memorials and burials to honor the Marines who have given their all for their country. Before the end of our tour, we invite you to watch a short video of our museum's 9/11 commemoration. Thank you for joining us for our virtual gallery tour. We look forward to having you visit our museum in person in the future. If you have any questions about this program, please contact us at nmmcdlquestions@gmail.com.